Welcome back to On the Trails with Sibley Nature Center. I'm Misty Thomason, and today we are joined by our special guest, Emily Dickerson from Balmorhea State Park. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Misty. Nice to be on the show.
Well, we were so excited to hear you present at your NED talk, and kind of just for everybody that didn't get to make it out, you were really talking about the importance of water and conservation, why it should be important to us.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to tell us a little bit about what anybody else might have missed that could catch at a later time.
Yeah. So in the NED Talk, we were talking about water and the water cycle. And whenever you're learning it in school, it sounds so boring.
Yeah.
They talk about evaporation, transpiration, precipitation. You're learning the terms. But the water cycle is so cool. There's so many interesting things that go on in it. And water is, we kind of think of it just as an item. But it has so many interesting states that it goes through, and it lives places, it hides places, it dies places. So that's something that I really wanted to get across, is to kind of personalize water and make it more connectable, because it's a resource that, it's not like a cuddly animal, right? Um, and it's easy to get somebody to care about the horny toads.
Right, right.
It's harder to get somebody to care about an aquifer and to have a favorite aquifer.
Right.
So that's what I was trying to get across today, is that, there are lots of interesting moving parts to the water cycle. And it's something that I think everybody should be aware of in a more fun way than how they usually got introduced to it.
Yeah. I think realizing that, of course, you being at Balmorhea, that's something very important to y'all out there, where you are and how you are, and what made it happen that you could be there as a water resource in spring. But I actually really enjoyed too, like just your explanation of water being a part of us. And that should be something that we're aware of, taking care of, and protecting,
Mhm.
and how it all got there. And the crustaceous, like, tell a little bit about your layering and the crustaceous and that like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
some really interesting
So,
underground things.
yes, the ground is cool. The ground is such an interesting thing, right? We look up into the sky and we can look up to infinity in essence.
Yeah.
But we look down and the ground kind of ends where we can see for a lot of people. But there is so much more distance in between us and the center of the earth than there is between us and the end of our atmosphere. And there's so many things to see down there. It is moving in incredible ways, and it is like a living, changing thing. It's not just this fossil record, It is so incredibly alive down there. There's so much cool stuff. And, I've worked in two caves, and now I work with San Solomon Spring at Balmorhea State Park. So, down beneath our feet, we've got this really awesome layer called the Cretaceous period. And a lot of it is limestone. I love limestone, which is, possibly one of the nerdiest things a person can say. So these ecosystems are karst ecosystems. And karst is um, really interesting in a couple different ways down below the ground. For one, the way it was formed is something incredible, because, about 100 million years ago or so, there was an ancient seaway that took up the middle of what is now the United States, Mexico, Canada. And this seaway was warm and it was shallow, and it had all of these cool little critters in it. It had a ton of critters. It was incredibly biodiverse. There are really interesting things that go on with that biodiversity. So, like, sharks, you don't see too many species in one spot. But in the Cretaceous period, you would see something in certain spots. There would have been something like 20 different species of sharks sharing one little part of that seaway, and that is it's too many sharks. That shouldn't work. But it does work. So in the Cretaceous, we see all of these different aquatic things that are hanging out in the water. There's dinosaurs, and there's little critters that have shells, and they live and they die, and they live and they die, and they live and they die, and they drop those shells down to the bottom of the ocean. And those get tumbled around, they turn into sand, and then over time that seaway recedes and it becomes land again. And then it gets more stuff layered over the top of it. And that creates a lot of pressure. And eventually you get a rock. And now you have a little snail in the rock going, yay, I'm a rock. So that's where we get a lot of our fossils. So we've got this interesting layer of the Cretaceous, and it makes this really beautiful limestone that does a couple things for us. And one of the main things it does is that it dissolves real easily. So, whenever you've got rain coming down, it picks up some carbon dioxide from the air and it becomes a very mild acid. It's carbonic acid. And if you've ever had a soda, you've had carbonic acid.
Yeah.
So it comes down and hits the ground. And if it hits limestone, and if that limestone, that dissolved bit, has a way to get out, you wind up with a cavity. And limestone itself is very porous. It has a bunch of little spaces in between for things, either air or water, to hide in. So it makes this really awesome layer that has a ton of potentiality for different things, and it changes over time. It's so awesome.
And
I like
then
this one.
within that those layers,
Mhm.
because you were explaining in that talk how okay, then that layer, some things are permeable, some things are not permeable, and then that's how our aquifers are formed.
Yeah.
And that's how the things under the water are underground formations, some being permeable, some not.
Mhm.
Um, but and that important time and use and layering
Mhm.
of the different periods and explain that groundwater layer, like
Yeah.
how that was a really cool explanation, and I thought it was for anybody who doesn't really understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever people think of aquifers, whenever I bring this up on tour or something like that, generally, whenever you think of an aquifer, you think there's this big open pocket under the ground, and the water is just
Yeah.
kind of sitting in that, like a big bubble of water down underneath in the rock. But aquifers are gigantic, some of them. So in the layers of rock, we have rock that will hold water, and we have rock that water does not like to go into. It's too tightly packed, it's not permeable. So if you get into limestone, it's got a lot of little mini pockets inside of it. The water will sink down into that, and it can actually soak into the rock just like a sponge. And that's what an aquifer kind of is. It's a giant rocky sponge. And then whenever you get aquifers, you'll see that they kind of pile on top of each other too. So with these layers of rock, there are, you'll have your sponge, and then it's like having a dish on top of that, and then a sponge and a dish. And that gets interesting whenever you have movement of those rocks down under there. If you have something like a fault line that cracks them open, you can get mixing of aquifers that way that might not have been intermingled before. So water chemistry, whenever we're doing those studies, that is a big part of it, is trying to figure out where the water is traveling through to. But yeah, you've got this series of um, either interconnected or totally separate little sponges that are down there.
And I thought it was also very interesting because you were explaining kind of how Balmorhea was formed as this oasis, kind of
Mhm.
talking about the park itself and the perfect storm that had to happen. Can you kind of explain
Yeah,
what's going
yeah, yeah.
on? That there is that beautiful oasis right here in the
Yes.
desert.
Um, it was something that was a little bit difficult to find. I'm not a hydrogeologist. I just hang out with a lot of hydrogeologists.
Lucky.
So there is nobody had really put the pieces together. I've only been at Balmorhea for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really something that was looked into before. We didn't have an education program. So this is all pretty new stuff. But there are a couple puzzle pieces that got put together. So For one, we sit right on the edge of the Davis Mountains. So we have what is in essence a wall to the south. And then to the north, there's a town called Toya, and it has a fault line running through it. And that one was really hard to find whenever I finally found that map through the Bureau of Economic Geology.
Oh, wow.
I had such a party in my office. It does exist. I had been looking for it for months. And so it was logged and it was there, and I still haven't found its name, but it's there. So in Toya Vale, there's a fault line that had moved the rock just enough where now there's a layer of that impermeable rock that it butts up to with our little Cretaceous layer. And so you've got wall to the south, wall to the north. That's step number one. And then whenever you actually get to San Solomon Spring, which is what fills up the pool at Balmorhea, there are two more things that kind of pull into making the spring there. So one of them is that we are in the lowest part of the basin. The Chihuahuan Desert is kind of known for this basin and range topography. So we've got our range is the Davis Mountains, and then we're in the basin. We're at the lowest part of that basin. So that naturally puts us closer to the water table. And then the second thing there at the springs is that we are also sitting on top of a fault line. It's thankfully inactive now. But that is what would have originally put the first into the rock that gave us our first spigot out of the ground. And whenever you're looking at a spring, you can have multiple outlets for one spring. Whenever you're in the pool itself, you can actually see the spring coming out. There's a big outlet down in the very bottom of the pool where
Yeah.
you can see the sand dancing down there. And, we were talking beforehand, you said it looks kind of foamy, and it does. It's kind of bubbles. But there are other little spots around kind of the edge of the pool, that circular part that's called the atrium. And that's where a lot more water is coming out. So that's kind of the perfect storm, like you said, that led to Balmorhea being in the middle of the desert. Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought also, I just kind of plugging Balmorhea because it's such a cool place. I know I'd gone so many times and diving there, but I didn't know the Senecas, the
Cienegas.
the Cienegas.
Yeah.
Tell a little bit about that because anybody who comes needs to go see this because there's so few of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'll have people who have been coming there for years, who have never seen our cienegas. And a cienega is just a special type of desert wetland. It's defined both by the vegetation that surrounds it, but its main feature is that it stays saturated with water throughout the entire year. So it's different from a playa lake, which will fill up with rainwater and then dry out over time. Ours always have water. So Cienegas, you'll see different places with Cienega in the name,
Mhm.
but there are only so many active Cienegas left in the world. Logged publicly right now, there are about 40 left. We have two of them here at our park. There used to be hundreds of these throughout the desert Southwest, but now there's just those 40. And they're a really good indicator of that water table. So whenever you come to Balmorhea, absolutely see the Cienegas because they're one of the only places that you're going to be able to at this point. They are spectacular little features. They're shallow, and at Balmorhea, our water is super clear, so you can see crawdads down at the bottom. You'll see our turtles. We have fantastic turtles. We have Texas spiny softshells. And they get big. They're fantastic. Our largest one, her name is Bertha. She's at least 16 years old. We love her to bits. So come see Bertha in a Cienega.
And you have and the pupfish. That was a really interesting kind of also going back to the why you have the pupfish in our water conversations,
Yeah.
but explain about the pupfish and where they came from.
Yes. So we are not the only spring in the area. Even San Solomon Spring is part of the San Solomon Springs plural system, of which there are about 6 springs, kind of in a line out where we are in Balmorhea. And so Comanche Springs is in Fort Stockton, and it used to be one of the largest springs in Texas. But over time, it went dry.
Yeah.
And that was a water use issue. It was not a water availability issue. And that's really what we're facing a lot of the time with water here in West Texas is that it's a water use problem. It's not a water availability problem yet. If we continue to use some of the practices that we're using, then we run into some hot water over time. But yeah, so that's one of the things that's kind of a cautionary tale. Um, Balmorhea itself, whenever it, because we're a CCC park, a Civilian Conservation Corps park, that was developed in the 1930s, and while they were developing the park, they logged the flow rate at about somewhere from 25 to 30 million gallons per day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's a lot of water for just out in the desert.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we're logging at about 15 million gallons per day. So that's halved since the 1930s.
Oh,
And it's been a slow decline. And a lot of that is development.
right.
But it's something that we have to be aware of because these things happen so slowly over time that we can almost trick ourselves into thinking that it's not really something we have to worry about.
Right.
So that's a trap we don't want to fall into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can do so many little things like, shorten your shower
Yeah.
time, turn off your water while you're brushing your
Mhm.
teeth. There's all kinds of little tricks to saving water. I even used to challenge my students when I was teaching to do the military bath where
Mhm.
you lather up. There's lots of things people can do, even watering your lawns less or planting. Like
Yeah.
here's Sibley plug, plant native plants, plant native species.
Yes.
Um, and then they don't need as much water.
Exactly. Yeah.
So with your daughter here said, "Woe is the tale of this is the end of days. The
No.
sky's not falling, but it might be raining."
Yes. We hope it's raining.
Yeah. Well, back to the
Yes.
water table. Huh?
Exactly. So there's so many things we can still do.
Right.
I think that these days we get into a very doom and gloom, I can't do anything mindset. This is still very much an issue, at least in West Texas,
Yeah.
that is very treatable. Like this, I want to instill hope in that because there's so much we can do, not only on an individual level. There are so many grassroots efforts that are
Yeah.
going on right now, and different groups that are working with landowners and conservation entities and researchers. And if you can get all of these people in the same place going towards the same direction, we wind up going in a really effective direction altogether. So, if you can get everybody in a region protecting your particular watershed, that is so important. Water conservation districts, personally a big fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, they can only go so far though.
Right.
There's only so much that they can stick their nose into, for lack of
Right.
a better word. So, it has to be taken from more of this organizational level down to individual and group efforts, um, for these kind of multifaceted groups that can all put their efforts and take all of their different resources and put them in the same direction. And I think that that is really the way to do it. So we've got a ton of different groups that are trying to really protect our different aquifers, our different watersheds, and that helps massively. Because it shouldn't be right. Obviously, we should be doing things on an individual level, uh, but there's only so far that water conservation can go with just watering your lawn less. That's fantastic. Do it, gold star.
Yeah.
Uh, However, it's a group project. Yeah.
Right.
And we all want to see water in the future. Our bodies are 60% of water. So what I like to say is that more of the parts of you that exist are your building blocks are coming from the ground. You need to know where your building blocks are coming from.
Yes.
That's where you're literally physically coming from. So it's really important that we protect not just the environment, but also ourselves that way. Because all of this groundwater it is literally in our makeup. So we should absolutely be protecting it. And that's such an important part of the puzzle. We talk a lot about how people are kind of distanced from their food sources these days.
Mhm.
I'd love us to get in touch with our water resources.
There you
Yeah,
there you go.
less than just under half of adults in the United States do not know their original water source, where it comes from. And that's a little bit of an interesting statistic because where are we drawing the line on that? If you say, oh, it comes from an aquifer, is that what we're calling a decent answer for that? Or it comes from a well. But what aquifer is it drawing from specifically?
Yeah.
Um, at Balmorhea, we have this really cool water system. Most of our water is coming from the Edwards Trinity Aquifer, which goes all the way over to Austin. So it's huge. It's just like the Ogallala. These giant, massive, major aquifers are what we kind of think of. But there's also small, little, minor, local aquifers, and those are just as important to
Right.
protect. Um, at Balmorhea, there was a study done on our water chemistry by a woman named Rebecca Nunu. And in her research, she found that there is a isotope in our water that was not found in any of the monitored wells around the area. So we know that we're pulling from one of those small little local aquifers. And obviously, the mystery aquifer is my favorite aquifer. I
Yeah,
think
of
that's really
course.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think you should know where your water is coming from because connection is protection, right? The more connection we have, the more protection that we can offer to these resources because they are literally making up you.
right.
That's where your water is coming from. That's what you're drinking. It's part of your makeup. So
And you can't
yeah,
and just like the idea of because I've heard people say, "Oh, well, I'm on well water. I'm not on
yeah,
city water." Well, but we're all getting our water from somewhere down below the same space.
yeah.
And was talking to Dr. Rebecca Dodge about it, kind of a visually of everybody thinking that their well is just in this one little portion and not realizing that we're all putting our straws into the same places to draw it, and protecting
Exactly.
that down below big off aquifer
Hmm.
should be important to all of us.
Yes.
Your well
Hmm.
can go dry if too many straws are in it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's happening. There are people
Hmm.
having to. I saw in Arizona. There's people having to buy water and bus water and
Yes.
different things like that
Hmm.
that happen.
Hmm.
And just being aware of it, and
Exactly.
you guys actually will come out and present. You're a member of a group that you do presentations on water too. If somebody wanted you to come out and talk about water or come to you and have a
Yeah.
water talk,
Yeah.
what is that the group that you were representing in the water
Yes.
part?
So there are a couple different ones near Balmorhea.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Friends of the Pecos River, they do a really great job.
Yeah.
They have a ton of educational outreach that they do to really personalize our aquifers and obviously the Pecos River. Um, but there's also, I mentioned those grassroots efforts earlier. One of the group that is really hitting the watershed that we live in is called the San Solomon Springs Collaborative. And that is one of those groups that is kind of bringing together those landowners and conservation entities and the researchers to all get them going in the same direction. And it's so effective,
Yeah.
whenever you've got um, this kind of agreement, because none of us want to see the water go away.
No.
Um, there are, and groups like that can really make headway um, whenever it comes to things like policy change. So if that's something that like I said, these are things that we can still do something about. If that's something you'd really like to do something about, then joining one of those groups, cool. You can.
Yeah.
That's something that would really help. I'm sure. So there are things we can do on an individual level, but getting involved on kind of a group project like that,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, big pull.
And I think also, that, people know that, but is Balmorhea only open in the summer?
It's not. We're open year round. So you can our water stays 72 to 74 degrees
Yeah,
year
it's
round.
beautiful, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, if you've never been there, the water is crystal clear and it's yeah, it is the world's largest spring-fed swimming pool. And so it is such a treat to swim in. We're kind of sitting in the middle between a pool and a lake.
Yeah,
We're still very much a natural body of water. You know, you'll swim with the turtles, you'll swim with the fish, you'll swim with the pupfish,
yeah.
and get to see them. They're very round, they're very cute. So
And you're
there's
the
yeah.
largest. You there's been reports that admit that y'all might have some competition,
Yes.
but there's actual data to support
Yes.
Balmorhea is the largest.
Mhm.
Well, and we won't throw the other spring under the bus, but Balmorhea's got them beat just by volume.
Yes.
Right, mic drop. Um, and is there anything else that you kind of want to share about the water table or energy or information about coming out to Balmorhea?
Yeah. Um, so Balmorhea, like I said, sits in this really interesting spot, right? It's just whenever you're driving to Balmorhea, you're gonna be in the middle of desert scrub wasteland.
Yeah,
And then eventually, we'll get people who are driving in from Fort Davis and they're trying to make their way to the interstate, and then they see just this explosion of tall grass trees. What's over there? And our minds immediately go water. But that's weird to see just in the middle of the desert like that. So you pop over and you find this absolute gem just
yeah,
in the middle of the desert with these really cool wetlands and uh, this pool that you can swim with the little fishies in, and it's so unique of a place. It's got the history, whenever I got into parks, there you kind of get shuffled into either like a cultural park or a natural park, and usually one or the other kind of takes precedence. And Balmorhea is one of those awesome parks that really has the attractiveness of both. We have a lot of history and we have a lot of really cool nature. So I get to nerd out about a lot of stuff.
yeah.
So if you've got something you're interested in, I guarantee you Balmorhea has something that
Yes.
relates to it. So we've got such a unique little spot that you wouldn't expect to find in the middle of the Chihuahuan Desert. And I think it's just such an interesting way to explore the water cycle. Part of the talk was that we talked about um, weather prediction, looking at clouds. That is something that is easier to do than you think. You've got your really high clouds that are predicting 12 to 24 hours out. You've got your middle layer clouds that are telling you kind of what's going to happen in the next 6-ish hours. And then you've got your low clouds that are going to tell you kind of what's happening here and now. And once you learn these things, they're so awesome and they bring the water cycle absolutely to life. And so you can see how there are mainly 4 different types of clouds, and they all combine with each other to make these really interesting combinations. And whenever you see them in place, all of a sudden you see a part of the landscape that you weren't connected with before. Watch a YouTube video. It will take you 10 minutes and then you can predict the weather.
I know you call
Yeah.
us armchair of forecasters.
Yeah, armchair
Yeah,
meteorologist. Yeah.
armchair meteorologist. I love it. I love it. And knowing that it just came from a guy who was daydreaming in class of something else to
Yeah.
do.
Mhm.
Just the whole study of clouds and their design. And
Yeah.
there's what, four?
There are kind of 4 prefixes slash suffixes that are
Uh-huh.
the main ones. And you've got your cumulos, which are that translates to kind of heap or pile. You've got your stratos, which are those sheet clouds. Your cirros, which are that kind of translates to hair. it's that wispy ones.
Mhm.
And then you've got your nimbos, which are your rain clouds. And whenever you put those all together, you get cumulonimbus, you get altostratus, you get cumulo cirrus. You know, there's a
Yeah.
bunch of different cloud types that you can look at and kind of take from there. Obviously, there's a ton of different specialized clouds,
Right,
but
right.
you got your main ones.
Yeah.
And once you see that, I that's a talk that I give over at the park. We do in the summer. We also have our speaker series called Deep Dives. And
Oh.
during my ranger talks, I will give a talk about cloud spotting. And I'll have people come back, maybe a couple weeks later, months later. And I had a guy say, "Oh my gosh, my wife, every time we get in the car, now she's telling me about what the weather is going to do."
She thinks she's a specialist now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is really fun. It's just another way to um, really connect yourself in with where your water's coming from. We've got this recharge that's coming from rainwater that is sinking down into our aquifers. And one of the things we talk about in the talk is that the reason recharge is so important is because that rainwater sits in a line. It doesn't immediately go down into the aquifer. There's already water down there. You
Yeah.
start digging a hole and eventually you get to kind of more moist dirt. I'm sorry, I know people hate that word.
Right.
But
Right.
so you've got some moisture down there. And so but that water hits the ground and there's already water down there. So it has to wait its turn. And it takes a really long time for gravity to move it all the way down into the rock. So some of the water that we're getting out of the ground at Balmorhea is millions of years old.
Oh, that's cool.
It's been sitting with the fossils.
Yeah.
It's fossil water.
You should sell it. Fossil water in a bottle.
We're trying
Yeah.
not to sell.
Okay. So, no, sorry. That was a terrible plan.
Yes. No, but that is a good point. Something that those groups are trying to kind of steer from
Yeah.
is
Commercials.
trying to keep water in the ground. It does
Yeah.
a lot of good in the ground. We kind of think of water as something that we need to pull up and out, and because that'll be usable for us. But whenever you start taking water out of the ground, you're taking stuff out of the ground.
Yeah.
And that leads to things like sinkholes and other miscellaneous issues that we
Oh.
don't really want to have happen.
Right.
So you don't want to make the ground brittle like that.
Right.
Because this water, it almost acts like a rock itself. It fills in the blanks. It keeps the pressure from pulling things down and in, in essence.
Oh.
So that's another reason why taking too much water out is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So there are things that are kind of being tossed around. Texas water law has not made a lot of changes in recent history.
Yeah.
So with that, we're dealing with different challenges now. And with that, that's something that we need to look at is, how can we keep water down in the ground where it is also doing
Because if it's
good work?
if it's waiting its turn, then it's
Yeah,
gonna be around for somebody to have saved 10 million years from now.
exactly.
Somebody else who gets to drink it.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to come visit the park, is it all online now? Like, is everything through Austin getting park passes and things like that? You can is that what the best way to do it? Get your spot online?
Yeah. So we have two main ways that you can contact us to get your reservations. So those come online 30 days in advance. I would highly recommend having a reservation. We sell out big time, especially in the summer.
Oh yeah.
And we hate turning people away. So you can get those online through our reservation website. Website. Sorry. Website. And so you can get those through our website. And we've also got the call center out of Austin.
Okay.
And that number is 389-8900. And so there they can help you through if you've got something like a big group reservation. They're super helpful there. So definitely recommend having those. we want to see as many people as we
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
And
So
the lodge, everything's been kind of reopened. Y'all are revamped
yes,
and
yeah,
back on the
yeah.
table. Like, tell a little bit about what you have going on, all the
Yeah.
new lodges and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So we do have a historic lodge that is called the San Solomon Motor Courts. And those are newly renovated, absolutely gorgeous. A lot of them still have the CCC style furniture
Oh,
inside of them. They're super sweet. And the rooms are sitting right on the side of the canal. So, you can actually hear the canals burbling,
oh.
which is so peaceful. And if you're a birder, oh my gosh, no better place to sit on the porch and do some birding. Right now we've got our kingfishers who are hanging out and chatting with us.
Ah,
So we've got those. We got our great horned owls. Great place to see them in the
mighty.
motel. We've also got a campground that has recently reopened as well. And those have a fantastic view of the Davis Mountains in the morning. Um,
Yeah.
we get some really good sunsets.
Yeah.
So there are, like I said, whatever kind of nature enthusiast you are, yeah, there's something at that park.
And you guys have the website that tells it, like, the deep dives, this conversation series. More information on that. We can just go to the website and find it, or is
Yes,
it
we
better
have an
to?
event page on our website. We also have a Facebook page,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's where a lot of our stuff will be posted as well. And that's where we'll post things like updates to hours. Our hours change whenever we get in or out of daylight savings
Right.
time, winter, summer. So definitely check those before you come.
But yeah, that's a good tip because it's coming up. It's coming
Yes,
up.
it's coming up.
The
It's coming up.
change. Yeah. At least for this year, we're gonna have another change, so we need to keep up with all of that stuff. And you
Absolutely.
guys actually have some October things. There's a few things left to do and Christmas stuff too at
Yes,
the
yeah.
park.
So coming up, we have some really fun events. Some of my favorites of the year. We're going to have our October event is on the 25th. It's called Night at the Boozeum, and
Nice.
it's at night. It's family friendly. We all just come out and our volunteers are dressed as ghosts, and we give everybody special ghost flashlights. So whenever you hit us, we come to life and you can see the ghosts, and we'll tell you something about the park. And I think it's my favorite event of the year. We have a really good time with that one. We've got a turkey trot that's coming up in November. We're going to have our Cosmic Christmas in December, where we're going to do some Christmas stargazing. There's going to be the Geminids meteor shower that's coming up there. And if you've never seen our night sky, woo, we got a good one.
Yeah.
So we love a good stargazing program. Those happen pretty much once a month, and then we've got coming up in the springtime, we'll also have our community day, which is you guys helped us out with.
Yeah,
Thank you so
yeah, that
much.
was so
It's
fun.
fantastic. This year was our first time doing it. We had such a fantastic turnout, and that is a free entry day to the park. It's our one free entry day a year, or second actually. So yeah, that's pretty much what
The
we've
up and
got coming
coming.
up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll check out more. Thank you so much for visiting with us today at the Net Talk and then coming in and doing this with us. And I hope more people get out there to see the beautiful things that y'all have going on at Balmorhea.
Yeah.
It's a
Pick a
one of a
favorite
kind.
aquifer. Yeah.
Pick your favorite. I love the Edwards Aquifer.
Me too. It's a good
And the
one.
mystery. And the mystery one. That's
Obviously the
okay,
mystery.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And also it's October. So that
Yeah.
makes me feel Scooby-Doo-ish.
Ooh, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Misty. It was great.
I'm looking forward to working together more in the future.
Same.